Developing habits is like the compound interest of self-development. It is the long-term discipline of getting better, stronger, smarter, 1% at a time. And you don't develop habits instantaneously, but rather through small changes that you make every single day that will eventually lead to a lifelong habit. So today we're going to talk about how this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, can help you become wiser about money and develop good habits over the course of your life. And speaking of good books, this video is brought to you by, actually, I only have 200 subscribers, so brought to you by nobody. But if anybody out there is Audible's listening, I just bought a new Kindle on Prime Day, so hook me up with some new books. So how do we incorporate habits to make us wiser about money, to make us smarter investors, and eventually lead us to financial freedom? So James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, emphasizes that the outcomes in your life are the lagging indicator of the habits that you develop. Thus, your financial health is the sum of all the habits you have about money. And the author says, you do not rise to the level of your goals, but rather you fall to the level of your systems. So what this means in practice is to not entirely focus on the goals themselves, but rather to create systems which you will stick to for the rest of your life. So let's go a little bit into the personal systems that I've developed for my own finances. So this book explains the feedback loop of any given habit. And there are 4 parts to it: the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward. The cue of a habit contains all the triggers that start that habit. Within the craving of a habit, you gotta find motivations that keep that habit going. Within the response is the habit itself that will form over time. And the reward of a habit is effectively the end goal that you're looking for. So the 4 key criteria to making a successful habit is to make it obvious, to make it attractive, to make it easy, and to make it satisfying. So let's talk about some of the habits and the systems I've created in my life, and hopefully you can learn and apply some of these too. So many people create these really big goals for themselves, but they don't really know how to get there. But I would encourage you, whatever financial goal you have, put that on the side and make sure you have a strong system in place in order to achieve that goal. For instance, having a goal of reaching financial freedom by the age of 50 might be a bit too vague, thus unproductive. Instead, you can reframe that goal by saying, I want to have a net worth of $1 million by the age of 50. Thus, it's more specific and much more quantifiable. And to make that $1 million even more clear and specific, let's break that down to even much smaller pieces. So let's say you need to save and invest $12,000 a year to reach that goal. That would mean $1,000 every month, $250 every week, or even $35 a day. The smaller and more concise that you can make that number or that habit, the much more easy it is to achieve. By saying I need to reach $1 million is almost unimaginable, but by saying I need to save and invest an average $35 a day is much more reasonable. The more clear your goals are, the easier it is to create systems to obtain it. And the more obvious your cue is, the easier it is to do. And when you think about it, our daily behaviors are often automatic. We blindly follow through routines every single day without even thinking. So it's super crucial to create these systems and make sure that they're in place so that your habits can follow through on their own. So here's my system of how I get things done. First, I'll write down my really big goals. Second, I'll break that goal down into a series of actionable steps. Third, I'll put those steps into a to-do list and make sure I'm tracking my habits. And 4, I make sure to look at that list and that plan often to make sure I'm making progress over time. So let's continue using the example of trying to get to $1 million by the age of 50. So you'll need to develop personal systems and habits that make you spend less while also allowing you to save and invest much more. One of the very first habits you develop is to track your spending, which will develop an awareness of where your money's going. And this cue will create this motivation to make you a bit more conscious about how you're spending your money. And for me, developing this habit of awareness really made me more deliberate in all of my big purchases. And for you, once you start tracking your spending, I'm sure that you'll realize how much you're actually spending versus how much you think you're spending. And I think you'll find some surprises. Consider tracking your daily purchases in a Notes app or in Google Sheets, and track how much you're spending over time in various different areas of your life, whether it's food, transportation, fun stuff, or any sort of disposable income that you have. And once you're tracking your spending over weeks or months, feel free to take a look and make sure you're spending money in the right areas, cut back where you need to, but also feel free to spend on areas that you actually enjoy and find value in. And over time, as this habit strengthens, you'll find that you won't need to write everything down, but you still will keep mental notes of what you're spending, where your money's going, and be much more aware of how your money's being used. Another habit you can start developing right away is to curb your impulse spending. And for me, probably like many of you, I'm such a sucker for Amazon Prime, and the ability to want something right now and have it show up tomorrow It's such a powerful feeling, right? But a really good habit that I developed that I stick to is to apply the 48-hour rule to anything that I consider a big purchase. So what I'll often do is I'll think about what I need to buy, and oftentimes I'll even put it in the cart, but I won't buy that thing until 48 hours later. And sometimes, not all the time, by the time that 48-hour passes, the desire to buy that thing also fades away. So I would encourage you to try this the next time you're buying something that might be a bit out of your budget, might be a splurge item. Just sit on it for 48 hours and see if you still want it. Now, I really had to think a little hard about how to make habits about money attractive, because oftentimes personal finance is super boring. Sometimes the topics are super complex and overwhelming. But if you're truly interested in building better financial habits, I would recommend finding communities where you can find like-minded people to discuss this with. So you can follow financial YouTubers, listen to podcasts, pop onto subreddits, and even join the community that I'm building on this channel. And I found that because talking about money is often so taboo, being part of these communities where everyone is so open about these topics and so informative about what they know, that the habits that I've developed about saving and investing and thinking about the future have just become part of my normal life by now. And in order to make habits easy, especially financial habits, you need to be able to make them automatic. And humans follow the law of least effort, which means we'll often gravitate whatever requires the least work. So therefore, we need to create an environment that makes future actions easier for us, and automation is the easiest way to do that. At a bare minimum, you should be automating your monthly bills, your rent, your debt payments. And on the savings and investing side, make sure you're paying yourself first each and every month, as well as automatically contributing to your 401k through your employer. So when I think about the rewards that can be reaped from these long-term habits, there's a couple of obvious areas. The first is that you can buy stuff. I'm looking forward to buying the PlayStation 5 next month, if they're in stock, but I've planned for it, I budgeted for it, so I can afford it pretty much no sweat. The second huge benefit and reward that I think many of you will see is being able to pay down your debts over time and eventually become debt-free. And the third reward for me is to be able to see my savings and my investments grow over time. And the habit I've built to track my net worth month over month makes me feel really proud and powerful of where my progress has gone over the years. And ultimately, the greatest reward of all the financial habits I developed over the last few decades is pretty much reducing and nearly eliminating all the stress I used to have about money. And who doesn't want that, right? Hey, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I'd really appreciate it. And if you develop any good financial habits, please feel free to share them with me down in the comments below. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, follow me at moneywithmin. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but come and watch me learn as I go. And finally, if you want to see more weekly videos on how to get wiser with your money, definitely consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.